Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you too. It's an honor to be here. It is an honor to have been asked to speak today, and thank you so much for giving me just a few minutes of your precious time. I want to start with a little bit of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, he came out in his second inaugural address. He was a tired man, and the country had been ripped apart and burned to the ground, and thousands of families had members that had died. And nobody could see how this thing was going to come back together. Bill O'Reilly just wrote a book. It's a great book called The Killing of Lincoln. It's fantastic. And the book opens up with the story of Abraham Lincoln at the second inaugural address, and the vice president is giving his speech, and the vice president is drunk, which, I mean, may explain the antics of our current vice president, but I don't know, what I'm trying to be kind with that. I say that as a recovering alcoholic. I've had that pattern myself. The vice president came out, and he was angry and he was drunk, and he started to rip the South apart. And he was up and he said, "Let me tell you another thing about the South. And we're going to get them, we're going to take their stuff." Abraham Lincoln, that was not him. That's not the course. Abraham Lincoln was extraordinarily unpopular because nobody wanted to hear him. Nobody wanted to hear him in the South, certainly, and people didn't want to hear it in the North. They wanted revenge. They were angry. They wanted to punish people. And Abraham Lincoln slowly stood. As he was walking to the podium, a man who was a celebrity, he was kind of the Leonardo DiCaprio or the George Clooney of his day. He was dating a woman who was the daughter of a famous senator from the North. And they were the it couple of the time. And as Abraham Lincoln passed them on the podium, they were there as honored guests. The man lunged at Lincoln. The police officer stood between them and then recognized him as a celebrity and knew that it must be a mistake, and the celebrity said, I'm sorry, I tripped. The police officer, knowing exactly who he was, said, "Oh, of course, Mr. Booth." It was anger. Visceral anger. I want it to end. And Lincoln got up, and his only message was, "And with malice towards none." Amen. That is the path. It was the path then. It is the path now. We don't have time to waste. I don't want to talk to you about the election or politics because I don't really care anymore. I don't think the answer is going to come from Washington. I have to tell you, you know who the candidate is I'm going to vote for is the candidate that's going to get up and say, here's the deal. If you live in Northern Virginia, Southern Maryland, or the Beltway, your property values are going to plummet if I'm elected. This is the only town in America that should have a recession because they don't create anything except paperwork and chaos. We are at an amazing crossroads. It's not a curse. What's happening to our country right now is not a curse, it's a blessing. But it depends on how we take it. It depends on what we do with it. We are under assault, not just from Muslim extremists outside of our own country, but anti-capitalist extremists who want to tear us down. And many of them just want the free stuff. There's a lot of people who are truly suffering in this country, that are unemployed, that need help. But there are many in this country that I call the fun employed, that have no intention of ever getting a job. They want the free stuff. They have no plans on working. They want to take it with malice towards none. There are flash mobs that just gather together to take, to destroy. This is not who we are. This is not an inherited problem. Does anyone in the media think that there might be a correlation between flash mobs and people who say, I want to take it from you, and the rhetoric that is currently coming out of this once glorious city? Is there a connection? It is the Robin Hood mentality. But just like everything else, it has been perverted. Robin Hood didn't steal from the rich. They were returning the money that had been stolen from the working people. It was stolen by the tax collectors, and the wealth was returned to the people. It was not stealing from the rich. Let's at least get the story of Robin Hood right. Everybody is looking for an easy way out. There is no easy way out. As a recovering alcoholic, the hardest thing I had to do, it took me years before I was willing to say the words. I spent over a year not able to look at my own self in the mirror, because every time I did, I looked right in my own eyes. And it forced me to tell the truth, and I wasn't ready to. I didn't want to. I didn't want to say the hardest phrase I ever had to utter, and that is, hello, my name is Glenn, and I'm an alcoholic. But I said it, and once I said it, I could begin my journey to freedom. We were born in freedom. It's where we belong. But it's hard. But when have we become a country that only goes for the easy solutions? We are a country that does things, as JFK said, not because they're easy, but because they are hard. It is time to reclaim that. It is time to reclaim our history, to reclaim the position that we have always held as Americans, and restore ourselves first to the rightful place, which is a powerful son or daughter of the all-powerful living God. It is easy. It is easy to not take a shower for several weeks. It's not easy to get a date that way or to get a job, but I don't think they're looking for either. It's easy to not do anything and sit in a park for several weeks and hold up signs and cry about how you've been wronged. I know. I cried about how I was wronged most of my life. It is hard to stop the crying. But once you do, you'll go through a period of very hard work, and then life becomes easy again because it makes sense. When you can finally stand up and say, nobody forced me to do anything. Nobody forced me to do the wrong thing. Nobody did. It was my choice. Nobody forced me to take this student loan. Nobody came in with a gun and threw me back in the back of a car and blindfolded me, and I ended up in a sales manager's office where they're like, now, you sign on this Mercedes SL 550. If they're forcing people into the student loans, maybe we should talk to the people who are actually doing it, the ones who are actually responsible, and that would be our university system. They're the only ones that can affect the price of student education. It is easy to listen to the great thinkers of our time, as they would like to be called, like Cornel West or Francis Fox Piven. It is easy because they will always point the finger at someone else. It is hard to do the right thing. It is easy to get swept up in what I'd like to call John Stewart Marxism, where you show up for 30 days, have a few laughs, and then it just happens, I guess. But we need to be better. We need to be better than this as a collective, and better than this as individuals. Be careful where you stand and who you stand with, because many will say kind and flattering and enticing things. We are living in those days. Freedom and capitalism are hard. It's hard work. But with that hard work, we conquered the wilderness. We tamed the West. We defeated fascism. We split the atom. We went to the moon. We have mastered the hard. We own the hard. It's the easy we seem to be struggling with. There is a storm coming, a storm of biblical proportions. It is a storm of hate, of revenge, of lies, of destruction, chaos, and power. The Occupy Wall Street crowd, the flash mobs, the redistribution of wealth people. They all want to take. They all want revenge. But that's not who we are. They've already lost. All we have to do is stand together. We don't have to agree on everything. We just have to stand together under the shelter of freedom and the shelter of God. America is great, as de Tocqueville said, because America is good. That didn't happen out of happenstance. It was designed that way. The root of that tree was Whitfield. And Ben Franklin stated it. "What's this American religion?" said the president of Yale University. "Mr. Franklin, what is this American religion you speak of?" Franklin said, "It's easy. There is a God. We're going to meet him. He's going to judge us. I'm going to throw in, he gets pissy sometimes. So if he's going to judge us, we should serve him. And the best way to serve him is to serve our fellow human being. That is the American religion, and that is what makes each of us as individuals good, and in turn makes America great. I sense a hunger in America. There is a hunger on the right and the left. There is a hunger to just be good. Americans are good. We may be misguided. We may get it wrong from time to time, but we are good. And we're just waiting for the opportunity to be good. I intend in the next year, while everybody is busy on politics, to give America that opportunity to be good and in turn be great again. I will not take a position of leadership. I will take a position of serving others. There's so many Moseses across this great land, so many people, so many organizations that have already done the hard work. When you need help, call on Mercury. We will be there. We will be there. When you need help, when you are looking, your organization is struggling, we don't want anything but to serve. We will serve you. Americans know in their hearts there are more people that want to help than need help. Let us live that. Let us move in that direction. I have heard enough words in my lifetime. If anybody's watched or listened to my show, you know I've said enough words in my lifetime. I've heard too many promises broken. I felt betrayed by almost every politician in every party. I have had my hopes dashed. My spirit felt broken. I'm done with words. Words don't get us anywhere. Action propels us forward. Speaking fewer words and finding those people of greater action. And action not just for the next election, not action that will change the political landscape for the next election, but change men's hearts and therefore change the political landscape for generations to come. Hate is on a scale and is growing on a planetary scale of unprecedented size. The violent left is coming to our streets, all of our streets, to smash, to tear down, to kill, to bankrupt, to destroy. It will be global in its nature and global in its scope. I said these things 2 years ago, and I was mocked and ridiculed. I explained this last January in great detail and said exactly how it was going to come down, and I was mocked and ridiculed. I no longer care. I no longer care if you mock or ridicule. I no longer care if you listen or don't listen. I will continue to tell you, trouble is coming, but there is a way out. As millions are taught or will teach others to hate and destroy, if we wish to survive, we must turn our own world upside down. I just spent the week with my own company and said, listen to me carefully. I have been trying to explain this in my own company. We are no longer a company that does an awful lot of charity. We are a charity that does an awful lot of business. We put people first always. We never ask, we need help. Our first question will always be, how can we serve you? And we will set an example. Others will rush for help, and together they will help us as we help them. This is capitalism at its best, and no one has to force us into it. We choose to be better people. We must be a force for good. We must be visible. We cannot be standing in closed doors talking about politics alone. We must be in our streets, not tearing down, but building up and empowering them. While people tear down and cause fear, we will be there as Americans to build, empower, and serve. We need to give America the same choice. We give America the same choice that Moses gave through the Lord. good or evil, light or dark, life or death, freedom or slavery. Choose whom you serve. And we must do it with malice towards none, which will be hard in the coming days. There will be people that will continue to belittle, to call you names, to tear you down, to strike out, to terrorize, to do everything in their power to cause you to fear or doubt. Do not doubt. Have no fear. God is with us. God is always with those who will stand in his light and stand where he asks you to stand. We must serve each other because what happens, not if, but what happens when the small government people win? What happens? If government won't do it, who will? We will. We must. It's not good enough to say, oh, the churches will do it. The numbers of people going to church is on a constant decline. We must go back to our houses of worship. We must return to God. We must and we will. We must reroot ourselves in the things that made us good as individuals. We have to start putting our money not where our mouth is, but where our heart is. Put our money, our backs, our legs, our arms, our skills, our entire being where our heart is. We must realize that it's great to talk about our rights, but the only way to truly fight for our rights is to pick up our responsibilities as individuals. Without responsibilities, there are no personal rights. When I went to Jerusalem, I introduced a program of the Bill of Responsibilities. I ask you now to please print this, keep it with you, live these principles, that we do have certain rights. We have the right to choose our own path, our own life. We can choose good or evil, light or dark. We do have that freedom. But we also have the responsibility to understand we are accountable for each of those choices. They are our choice. You go to school, you rack up a lot of school loans. That was your choice. We also have to understand that those choices have eternal consequences and consequences that ripple throughout society. Therefore, while we have the right to choose between light and dark, we must understand the responsibility to choose the 10 Commandments. I don't care if you're an atheist and you call them Steve's 10 safety tips. They're all good. If we all just lived those 10, we would change the world. Because I have the right to worship as I choose, I have the responsibility to honor the rights of others to choose as they do. Because I have the right to freedom of speech, I have the responsibility to defend the right of others to speak as they wish, even when it comes at my own peril, even when it is the hardest thing. Let me tell you something. A lot has been said here this weekend. I don't harbor ill will or wish to hurt anyone. As people have come onto this stage and been for and against, I guess, members of my faith. I celebrate their right to say those things in America. Let me say this. I am a proud member of the Church of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. He redeemed me fully and completely. He is the only reason that I am able to stand here today. I am a proud member of that faith, but more importantly, I am a member of the American religion. The American religion. There is a God. He's going to serve us after we meet him. We must serve him and serve our fellow human beings. That is our religion that we must unite on together. Because I have the right to pursue happiness, I have the responsibility to show humility and gratitude for all the things that I have. Because I have the right to honest and good government, I have the responsibility to seek it out. And if I can't find that person, then I have the responsibility to be that person. Because I have the responsibility to God-given liberty, I have the personal responsibility to have the courage to defend others, to be secure in their persons, their lives, and their property. Not too many people in the press will even report that there was a man in St. Louis 2 weeks ago who wrote a pro-Israel poem. He's a Muslim. He lives or lived in St. Louis. He no longer lives in St. Louis. He had to move out of fear. He was scooped up in the middle of the night. And they carved a Star of David in his back. We have a responsibility as human beings to stand and protect others. Because we have the right to equal justice, we must stand for those who are wrongly accused. Because we have a right to knowledge, we have to be accountable to ourselves to ensure our children's education and our own education. If you can't afford to go to college, go to the free public library. I did it. It works. Because I have the right to pursue my dreams and keep the fruits of my labor, I have a responsibility to shelter my family, to protect and feed my own family, but also the less fortunate, the widows, the old, the infirm, and those who cannot work. No matter who wishes to deny what's going on in our world, we are a country at war. And denying it or burying our heads in the sand doesn't matter. The war on terror is a religious war, but it was not declared by us, but by radicalized Islam, and no amount of denial will change that fact. They themselves have declared it. We must end it. There is a race war that is going on in our country, declared by the Black Panthers and Louis Farrakhan and anybody else who says that America somehow or another stole the land from Mexico. There is a race war. It wasn't started by us, but they have declared it, and we must end it. There is a war between the political parties, both of them, and the American people. We did not start it, but we must end it. There is a war between the media and the truth, and it must end. As the president declares his own war on class and then denies it, Let us make our own declarations and never deny it. War is about destruction, killing, chaos. That is not who we are. We must end it. It is the only way to win. I suggest that while we have the opportunity as free men and women to mobilize, we mobilize and dedicate ourselves, our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. But in doing so, we must never shout, "God is on our side." He is not. We must instead do the things personally in our own lives to ensure that we remain on His side. And that includes to end a race war. We must never judge a man by the color of his skin, but by the content of his character. But as we do so, let us also declare that character does matter. We must declare the content of character is all that matters. Our country's salvation can only be found in one place. And it is the very same place where you find salvation as an individual. In fact, I declare there is no such thing as collective salvation. It is only individual salvation. We must square our shoulders and make the bold declaration that collective salvation is a myth. We are not a collective, we are individuals. I am a man, and I deserve and demand to be treated as a man and as an individual. We are not the collective. In the end, we are only going to be remembered one of two ways, and history is being written right now. Your name will be recorded in the history books, and it may only be in your own personal family history. But do the things now that you will be remembered in your own family for generations to come. Be unequivocal. Be clear. Let your family know, teach your children through your actions where you stand, what you know to be true. In the end, we will be remembered either as a group of people that were so suicidal that we ran into the chains of slavery, or we were the people, after years of praying, finally heard that call, the wake-up call of the third great awakening, and stood and embraced it. We make that choice now. This is just the beginning of the things that are yet to come. The Marxist movement of protesting capitalism is spreading, and you will be called every name under the book. Every name you will be called. But let's remember what our mothers told us. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt. Union bosses, they'll break your bones, but names will never hurt us. In 1961, JFK declared something that was truly unimaginable at the time, that the United States would put a man on the moon and return him home safely to Earth by the end of this decade. That was an amazing goal. It was such a lofty goal, so inspiring, that people put aside their doubt that maybe we can't do that. They put their doubt and their fear aside, and they reached past the envelope of Earth and reached into the heavens for the stars. I suggest that we again, as Americans, are in exactly that same position. It's not 1961, it's 2001. Therefore, in the 1960s, we sent a man to the moon in the same summer that Woodstock was happening. In the same decade that we had the Watts riots, the Weather Underground, the assassinations of MLK, JFK, RFK, Malcolm X, we landed a man on the moon, and we changed the world forever. The challenge that lies in front of us is no less of a challenge. It is no less daunting of a task. It is no less of a question than, can we put a man on the moon? Our forebears answered that question in the 1960s. But the question we face has been asked and answered both yes and no. We forget that it's a question that has to be answered by each generation. Can man rule himself? I suggest the answer is yes. It is our turn to answer it. We have been born for times such as this. We are all here for a reason. Find your role. Pick up your responsibility. Accept the challenge that lies before us as a collective and us as individuals. I suggest that we, before the end of the decade, send men out to serve, to heal, to teach, to comfort, in places and in numbers never yet imagined, never yet achieved, and do so by the end of the decade to return men to his freedom here on earth, with malice towards none, with charity for all, with the firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right. Let us strive on to finish the work that we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who have borne the battle, for his widow and for his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace with ourselves and with other nations. Mr. Lincoln said, "This is not how we'll win the next election, but by doing the small and simple things, by accepting our responsibilities that makes each of us good. It will in turn make America great again. We will be able to vanquish evil, to be the shining city on the hill again, and again define American exceptionalism for anyone in this city that might need a refresher on that concept." May God have mercy on all of us. May God continue to bless all of us. May we continue to see the great blessings of struggle. May God smile on our country. And may we once again find that firm reliance in the protection of divine providence as we go forth and mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. God bless you. Thank you.